who's joining us on the show today. She's been working on the Talave wetland, and she has had massive challenges. The government wanted to develop, Sidco specifically, wanted to develop a little golf course and a little residential complex. Now, this is a bird sanctuary. Flamingos come here every year, and they had to fight tooth and nail to bring it to a point where they are today. Also joining us today is Aishwarya Sridhar. Aishwarya spent
Hello.
years now fighting to save the Panjay wetland in Iran, and they have had similar challenges. The government went back and said, and has just sent back another letter saying it's not a wetland, it's a cricket ground. Anyways, we'll get into those details as we discuss what it took these 20-some-year-olds to fight this battle, because people are willing to sell their soul, and that is not what they were ready for. Also joining us is Rahul Kot today. Rahul is going to be giving us a little perspective. He is our senior member here who's going to guide us through this and tell us what's really happening. While the young people go out and fight, Rahul's been doing this possibly for much longer, and he's seen what happens to these wetlands. And it's not just here in Maharashtra. We're seeing it in Maharashtra because land's so expensive in Mumbai, and there are tremendous land sharks out there who want to grab this land. But it's taken tremendous effort. So I will start, Rahul, if you don't mind, with Surabhi. I'll then come to you, Aishwarya, and then I will come back to you, Rahul, for a little perspective, and then we can open the whole debate in terms of discussing and giving us perspective. We are here to learn. So great. I look forward to this discussion. Surabhi, tell me, how did you get into this first? Tell me a little bit about the Talave wetland and what happened here.
So the Talave wetlands have recently become world famous. So now I know that I'm not speaking into thin air when I address Talave wetlands, because the world has seen these beautiful flamingos this year. 150,000 of them have come here with all their beauty, all their glory. And so I live here since around 5 years. And when we moved here, these wetlands, these lakes, everything was already there, but it was untouched. It was just as is. But in 2016, the first instance happened when my parents were actually out on a walk, and they saw some labor men trying to hack on the mangroves over there. And that's when it began. And we started wondering what's happening and what is this sly destruction that's going on right in our backyard. And that's when it began. And that's when this group of citizens came together. We came together. We filed complaints to the police authorities, to wetland authorities. And it wasn't just, so we live in an NRI complex, and we have a number of buildings around us. All of the citizens came together. So when in the following year, when destruction began again in the plot nearby, there were around 150 trees hacked that year, which later increased to some 800 trees. And what they very smartly did was they put up high fences so that nobody can see what's going behind those fences, so that they can go ahead and dump the debris into the lake, which they were planning to do, to make a residential complex and a golf course in place of this beautiful wetland that we have. And luckily, because we had such a strong citizen group, we had people who were sending videos and photos on the group from wherever they lived, and they had that view. All of us came together, sent emails to all authorities. My parents even filed a PIL in court, and we came to where we are today. It has been this entire positive effort throughout all of these years, from marathons to nature trails. I didn't know anything about anything in this area, but experts like from BNHS, from a lot of these organized experts have come here and told us about all of the biodiversity that exists here. I mean, at no point would I have thought that in the middle of this Navi Mumbai, in the middle of this urban center, there exists such kind of biodiversity.
It is
It's
amazing. And
unimaginable. Something
when
that
you
they're going after.
when you realize when community comes together, when citizens come together, even the politicians have to finally give in, because they know if the citizens have come together, then there is nothing that's going to stop. Surabhi, I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to bring in Aishwarya here into the discussion, because she has been working on a very similar manner on the Panjay wetland. Tell us a bit, Aishwarya. Is your story similar to Surabhi's story of realizing what the whole wetland issue was, and have they been scuttling? And I love the Disney characters behind you, by the way.
Oh, these are some of my favorite characters from Disney.
Okay, tell us a bit about how did you find out about the Panjay wetland and what was happening to it?
So I have been visiting Oran since childhood. My dad's into birding. He's in fact a life member of BNHS. So he used to take me a lot of times to the Oran wetlands. And Oran is like a coastal town. At that point, it was a very small fishing village kind of a thing. So been there, going there since so many years, and I have personally seen Uran change. Like from the when I was about 8 or 10 years old, at that point, Uran had so many acres of wetlands. You had all kinds of birds. Like there used to be not a single day when we used to go there and you could find painted storks, flamingos, plovers, lakhs of ducks, and possibly a lot of wading and swimmers over there. And as time passed, I personally saw how the landscape changed from being a birder's paradise with so many wetlands. The entire thing turned into a concrete jungle. And this happened across time, across years. And today, only one wetland remains, which is Panjay. And when I got to know about it, that Panjay was also going to be filled because Sidco had leased it out to the NMSEZ, and they wanted to build a set of luxury apartments with a private jetty and all that sort of thing. I was really shocked. And I also knew that these wetlands are an important part of the fishing community because they depend on this wetland for their income and for fishing. And I happened to meet this localite Parag, and he has been helping me a lot with documenting bird life around Panvel and Uran. So he told me that Panjay was going to be filled, and I decided I couldn't let that also happen because I've seen Jasai go, I've seen a lot of other wetlands near the the Reliance tanking station at Oran being filled up. So I've actually personally seen these wetlands where you had with the birds and the filling going on. So you have had people, dumpers and trucks filling one side of the lake, and on the other side you have black-winged stills nesting and roosting. So they have had actually no regard for our environment, for these wild places. So I felt I could not allow Panjay to go. And that's when I thought of making a film because I personally had no knowledge about the legal environment and how to go to court. So I felt the visual medium would be much better. And I made a short documentary on the Panjay wetlands and I put that up on YouTube. And from there on, the film gained a lot of recognition, and a lot of people began to know that Panjay exists because before that time, only the birding community knew about Panjay. The local citizens did not know about that. So the film kind of brought that awareness to them. And finally, Panjay is now part of the 6 satellite wetlands that are going to be soon declared a reserve. So I'm very happy for that.
Good. Congratulations. But I know this is still a long war. It may seem like
Yes.
small wins, and I'm going to come back to you. Now, let's bring Rahul in. Rahul, give us a little sense in terms of what's really going on here. Because, we look at this and we say, it's a wetland. Come on, don't touch it. These are the lungs of the city. So, when we see so many of these wetlands being attacked, and this is not the first time I've seen it in India or anywhere else in the world. Uh, why does this happen? And in terms of BNHS's role, in making sure that we protect this? Tell us a bit about it.
Okay, so BNHS, since its inception, working on the biodiversity research on wildlife and its conservation. BNHS is also working on the Thane Creek since long, maybe for last 10, 12 years. We are continuously working in the Thane Creek and Mumbai, Navi Mumbai area, coastal areas, and particularly on the migratory birds. Now, there are a lot of complex things are happening. There are certain things which we can call as natural processes, which are, for example, the growth of mangroves into the Thane Creek that can cause choking of the mud flats actually, which are the feeding grounds for the many migratory birds. Secondly, as Aishwarya and they said that a lot of urban pressure is there, so land has a great demand, and wherever there is a empty land piece is there, people are trying to grab it and try to develop in some or other way. It could be uh, you know wetlands can be disturbed because of incoming projects like airports or bridges, or could be because of the commercial complex and all. So these things are happening, and what is happening actually, if you see a particular case of Navi Mumbai, so earlier it was a mosaic of salt pans and wetlands, and because of after 1980s, because of the urbanization of this particular area, now we have lost almost large chunk of wetlands, and very few pockets are remain. So these are the 7-8 pockets we are talking right now. When BNHS started its study on the migratory birds and wetlands in Mumbai, Navi Mumbai, there were at least 7-8 good large wetlands where we can see a lot of biodiversity. So last couple of years we are counting more than 2 lakh birds in Thane Creek and adjoining wetlands. So that's the talking about. And for a city like a metro city like Mumbai and Navi Mumbai, 2 lakh birds, it's not a small number, it's a big number. And all because of this natural and man-made interventions, because so what I am telling you, that there were 7-8 handful good wetlands, but now the number is reducing day by day. So we have lost, Panji is already disturbed. We have lost Bhenkar. There are a lot of activities done by the planning authorities and agencies, which are basically.
Rahul, I have a question. You talked
Yes.
about these wetlands are disturbed.
Yes.
Panji certainly is one of the
Yes.
wetlands which is
Yes.
massively disturbed.
Yes.
I'm told that you, as a group,
Mhm.
BNHS is not even, the researchers are not even allowed to enter the Panjay wetland because they've said it's been given to a big corporation. I don't want to name the corporation, but it's one of
Yes.
India's largest corporations, and they have security
Yeah,
installed there
that
and set of cameras and
happened.
you
Yeah,
can't get in
that
there.
happened last year. But then we contacted the CIDCO and we asked them to grant us permission, basically to go there and study the birds, because what we are doing there, we are actually taking the water samples, so benthic samples. Then we are counting the birds. We are also ringing and tagging, color tagging the birds. We are capturing and ringing the birds to know their movement and population. So these are essential things, and all these things need access to that particular site. So we had to do a lot of discussions with the CIDCO, and we asked them to allow us to go there and do. Otherwise, we won't be able to do our research. So that will be a really difficult situation. So yes, that happened.
But I've seen, I've lived in different parts of the world. I have never seen wetlands come under pressure like this, especially land mafia. These are the lungs of the city. It
Correct.
sequesters air to make it clean air and oxygen again. If it is the same politicians and the bureaucrats who are going to be living here and their families are going to be living here, I don't understand why they wouldn't protect it. And so that's something which is really, really baffling for me.
Maybe I think we have lost our touch with nature. Basically, we live in cities and we don't really think about the nature. We really don't think about the ecological importance of nature, because we are getting many things for free. We can order many things just a few taps. So basically, I think there is some connection. It's still a strong connection is needed, and for that, real awareness is necessary on grassroots level. So what other people's what should be and what Aishwarya is doing, that the same thing BNH is also doing in different ways. But we are creating awareness. We have to take local people's opinion. We have to consider them as a stakeholders, and then we have to fight the fight this thing.
Let me bring in Aishwarya here to start with. Aishwarya, you've had a challenge. The local fishermen in the area of Panjay, basically, they have been fishing there for, I would probably say, hundreds of years. They have now been asked, you do not step in here, otherwise you will be arrested. How does this happen? When you met these people over the years, explain to me what they feel about it.
So the local villagers, it is mixed. For Panjay, you have Panjay wetlands are between two villages of Panjay and Dongri. So the Dongri residents, they are wanting to save the wetland. Those fishermen want to really save it. Even the Panjay villagers are wanting to save it, but the Sarpanch is somewhere under pressure from these large corporations. So the Sarpanch is pro these corporations. So they kind of tell you that the inlets to the wetland have to be blocked. The boys over there can't play, so you can have a cricket ground in Panjay wetlands, and they force the villagers to go and block the main inlets of tidal waters. In fact, Rahul sir, I've spoken a lot to Rahul sir for helping Panjay wetlands revive, and he's helped me a lot in opening those inlets which have been blocked. BNHS has really played a very important role in that. And
Explain to me. I don't. So, for a layman who is listening to this, so what happens with these inlets? Now, there is water coming in to these inlets, and the wetland stays wet. And where does this
yes.
water come from? Explain to me. Explain to the layman what goes on.
So Panjay is at a point where it's right next to the sea, but the entire wetland is surrounded by walls. So you have precast walls that were laid down in 2008 or 9 when Sidco leased it out to NMSEZ. So they laid down these walls, and those walls are built on concrete boundary kind of a thing. So Panjay is like enclosed within that boundary. So you have water inlets coming from the sea, and you have a main inlet coming from the other side also. So in one side they installed sluice gates which blocked the inflow to Panjay. The other inlets they blocked from the outside, that is behind the wall. So when you go to the wetland, you don't know what has happened, why the wetlands dry. The inlets on this side, from the wetland side, look intact and open, but behind the wall, that is the mangrove and the seaside, they are blocked from there. So water does not come in. From this side, you feel that the wetland, even though water is allowed to come, water is not coming. So it's a wasteland. Might as well go ahead and fill it. Whereas the real reason is something else completely.
So, for the people who are joining me and now, let me explain what's really happening here. Sidco is an industrial development body and does all kinds of developments in Mumbai. Um, there is interest in making sure that it develops the place well, but it's a government body. It's got responsibility to make sure that the environment is saved, the rules are followed. But what happens over the years, these organizations like Delhi Development Authority and all of that, they become bodies in themselves. They become very powerful. There is tremendous amount of money involved because any time land has to be handed over, it can be handed over at different rates for different things. For example, let's look at, I'm brought in Surabhi here. The land in Talave was offered at a price which is about 80 hectares of land at the cost of what is for 2 acres. And issues like this really crop up. And this is where, if I may make the assumption, this is where, money changes hands on the back end. you offer a land of 80 hectares for the cost of 2 acres in Mumbai. That's a lot of money. And those are our challenges. And I think this transparency needs to come. If these are commercial developments, whenever they do, obviously they cannot be done on wetlands, but this transparency has to start. This whole concept of giving favorable land to different bodies and companies because their ownership is all muddled in corruption and they're all tied in with political parties sometimes, and bureaucrats themselves are massively corrupt, and we've seen it over and over again. So, tell me a bit about the specific land parcel where you are. Obviously, you guys were fighting for the flamingos and not really the cost and the land parcel and all of that. But you, when you
Right.
began digging a little deeper,
Mhm.
you found out a bit more. Tell us a bit about it.
So as you know, Talave, this whole area which are wetlands and mangroves, even without going into the specifics of the cost and those nitty-gritties, the plainest lie that Tidco went back and said, gave in writing to MCZMA to gain approval for the project here, was that these are not wetlands. These are wetlands, a simple layman who sees it, to experts like BNHs who see it, and it is mentioned in the National Wetland Atlas as well. And Sitco went out there and said it plainly in writing that these are not wetlands, and that is what
When
ensured they got approval
somebody
for this.
when somebody puts out a statement like that under their seal, why can't we send somebody like that in jail? I don't understand. If somebody without researching, without proper advice, has put out a statement like that, why shouldn't a bureaucrat like that be in jail? I don't understand. Rahul, can you weigh in? Does this country have a law? Can anybody put out?
Of course, we have a lot of laws, but the implementation, how it's been implemented, and the way they've been diluted, that's the question. That's the irony. So basically, what we are suggesting over the years that okay, we require development. We are not against development of any sort, but all the planning authorities should identify their land parcels and demark the areas, and don't touch the natural habitats. There should be some areas like no go areas and go areas. So if that kind of planning and transparent planning, of course, it's done, then I don't think there will be a problem. But of course, as you said, we as a country, it's a large country. There are a lot of laws. Some are like very old. Some have been revamped nowadays. So a lot of things are done, and only having law is not enough. Implementation, how it's been implemented, how people are taking the interest, that is also important. That is why I think it is what happening with the conservation in general, I think.
Anywhere else, if there was a project coming up, whether it was a shopping mall or residential complex, they would hold a large meeting of people of that area.
Yes,
They
yes,
would have a large town hall. They would invite people in. There would be a body who would listen to each complaint by any individual who came to that body. Each of those complaints would be lodged, and then the community body would sit down and make a decision based on each of those complaints and give an answer to each of those complaints.
yes,
And that is the due process of happen, for any development, even if it is not a wetland. Forget, this one is even a more important thing. This is a wetland. But even if it wasn't a wetland, there would be a proper system and a setup around it.
yes,
It's completely missing. Now, these two young women, Surabhi and Ashwarya, like with the help of their community, have uh, taken this up and are close to a win. But Aishwarya got a letter, I think, just yesterday, which said this is a cricket ground, and it isn't a wetland. She shared a letter with me. Explain to me, from both of you, how tough it's been, how much effort it's taken for the two of you and then your large community to make this happen together. Aishwarya, why don't you start?
So time and again, Sidco goes on and declares that places like Panjay, Talave are not wetlands. For them, I don't know what is the criteria of a wetland. For them, I think they consider wetlands as just wastelands. Panjay is divided into three pockets of wetlands with a road dividing it on either side. So you have one side which is like a cricket ground, which the villagers time and again block the inlet to play cricket. They do that during summers, and Sidco goes and strategically clicks pictures of the wetland only when it is completely dry because its inlets have been blocked. You cannot expect a wetland to have water when its own inlets don't get supply. If you cut off your water resource and your tap runs dry, you cannot blame the tap, right, for not giving you water. So that is what happens with Panjay time and again. And even with organizations like BNHS going and filing a report which says that Panjay is a wetland, it has all the characteristics of a wetland. BNHS had recommended to the court as well as I think to the forest department also, even to the CM, they had recommended that Panjay should be declared as a bird sanctuary. There's been people filing petitions on this. Conservation Action Trust has been working towards it. But after all these voices coming together, also, Sidco still maintains that one rut that it is not a wetland. I do not know how.
I, want to make a small point here. If the company that is developing these places is seeing this, please recognize you're doing a disservice to the people of your country. You're doing the disservice to the people of your community, to the place you live in. You're not developing it, you're destroying it. And so please listen in and make sure that you understand the damage you're doing for making a little bit of money. That money is not important. If you can't breathe clean air, there is no point. Rahul, I'm going to come to you for closing thoughts. Then I'm going to go to both the ladies. I think we've made our point. I think people understand that wetlands have to be protected. So closing thoughts, Rahul.
Yeah, now wetland has been recognized worldwide as a very important and critical ecological systems, and especially for migratory birds. They're migratory. This particular our country comes in the Central Asian flyway, and this flyway has been used by hundreds of species of migratory birds. So that is more. That is the importance of these wetlands can't be underestimated. First of all, they not only protect biodiversity, not only harbor biodiversity, but also protect other areas from flooding, or they are the catchment areas, and a certain wetlands like Panjay, they are depend upon ebb and flow of the water, so they are essentially the feed by the tide. So the incoming water and outgoing water need to be controlled if we need a particular water level, because all migratory birds require different kinds of water level, and particularly in Navi Mumbai area, we require shallow wetlands. So of course these wetlands are of tremendous importance, and we all need to come together to protect all these wetlands.
Great. Surabhi, closing thoughts from you on what has happened in Talave and what do you foresee the future to be?
I think the biggest challenge that we had faced initially, or that each one of us as an individual faces, is that no matter what we do, maybe I don't know if anything will happen with what I do, but the results that we have ourselves seen, we have seen that just coming forward, and even if it starts with two people, and as the community grows, you see results. Like now we have official communication from the forest department that this is a wetland, and we have seen results. Even the state environment minister himself called the Sidco MD in a meeting with us and asked him to get this change, so people understand it. When they hear people, they understand, they are sensitive towards it, and they do they want to help. So we have to go ahead,
Sidco has
and I
gone
think
back.
keep our hopes high.
But Sidco has gone back to the Supreme Court, is continuing to fight the case, even though they know this, and that's going on. So there is that whole lobby which will continue to go to courts and continue dragging this on, so that they can keep going on and on and on. Because they've already continued and done some construction, they've done some work, and even though the forest department has said, the government has said, but they know that there may be other partners. Tomorrow, this government loses election, another government comes back, the money will be back in their pocket. So I think those are the big challenges. Sir, Aishwarya, closing thoughts from you.
I would like to ask just one question, that why can't we have development and the protection of environment go hand in hand? We development should be sustainable. We're not against development. Definitely, we should progress economically, but also at the same time, we need to have healthy water. We need to have clean air. We need to have a place to live where we can coexist happily with wildlife, be it birds, mammals, insects. So you can't have a country which has only rising GDP and reducing natural capital. That does not happen. So
And in today's day, the GDP stands for gas, petrol, and diesel, right?
yes, we
Well,
can't have that. We can't have that. And I really urge the youth of today to stand up and raise your voice against these environmental crimes that are happening, because you are the future. And if you want to have and live on a healthy planet, then it's up to you to make that happen.
Totally. And I want to make this point as we go away that I think what's very, very important is after people have gone through COVID-19 and we are still going through it, to recognize that our immune systems are the most important. Our immune systems can only sustain if we have lack of chemicals in our stomach and system, and we have natural, biodiversity in our environment and within ourselves. So it's not essential to have more food. You may have less food, but the food quality is important. And I think it's all interconnected at the end of the day. Environment's not, one small pocket here and another small pocket there. So thank you, Rahul, Surabhi, Aishwarya, for
Thank you.
joining in.
You.
Really,
Thank
it
you
is
for having
very, very
us.
important. And
Thank
I
you so
think
much.
this fight's
Thank
going to
you.
continue. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Much.
Bye.